Welcome once again to Cackling Carnarium. This is the EDH Study Hall, brought to you by yours truly, Johnny Slivers. We are going to continue our trek through Eldraine and discuss the cards in the set as I see them fit for EDH. So there we go. My quest to continually put my eyeballs towards the cards of the magical cardboard rectangle thingies and try and remember them. Good luck to us all. All right, so last episode we left off with Ayara, first of Lochthwain. Pretty sweet monochromatic commander, mono black. And it's I was thinking about that. I'm still liking that. I'm like a mid-tier commander. I'm liking what that does. But moving on, next up we have a removal spell. It is Bake into a Pie. It's an instant speed removal of 2 and 2 black. Destroy target creature. Destroy target creature. Create a food token. So it's removal with some added bonus. If Brutaclad was, say, Grixis, then that would be cool. But on this, it's an interesting, very specific kind of upside to get that food token. But honestly, for spot removal, there's I'd look for, if you want to keep on theme with like fairy tales, fine, but I'm kind of meh. So I'm not too wowed by this for EDH personally. Moving on to Banish into Fable. This, on the other hand, I was kind of okay with this one. So Banish into Fable is a rare card at instant speed, 4 white, blue. Yes, a casting cost of 4 white and a blue. When you cast this spell from your hand, copy it if you control an artifact, then copy it if you control an enchantment. You may choose new targets for the copies. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. You create a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance. So this is interesting. It's kind of like basically you've got like blue has all of these bounce spells, basically boomerang of some kind. Of not quite the best of boomerang because you can't target lands, but ultimately you have the option of actually getting the effect 3 times for 6 mana. It is a little steep. It's kind of like Hex in terms of it can hit multiple targets, but the contingency that you need to have artifacts and enchantments in play kind of keeps it under control. Because you're paying. Let's say we go and look up Hex here. Pull up another window here for Cardsphere. Yes, cardsphere.com for all your paper Magic the Gathering needs. Hex is an older card that was a similar casting cost, mono black, but it would hit multiple targets. So let's see, it was Commander 2011, Ravnica City of Guilds, and Commander in 2019. So Hex would be 4, 2 black, destroy 6 target creatures. So in exchange for, I almost think the Banish into Fable possibly, it balances out. This makes sense because you're getting 6 effects at the same time with the contingency that you have artifacts and enchantments in play. So truly, I think it's balanced out. I think they did that stipulation to make sure it stayed balanced out because it's a 2-for-1. Basically, you bounce something and you get a creature. Even then, at 6 mana, that's steep. But in EDH, everyone you're gonna have a mana rock. So even in EDH, you're bouncing 2 creatures. You're getting 2 creatures for 6 mana. 4 power for 6 with 2 removal actions isn't bad actually. This is okay. And the fact that in white blue you can easily have artifacts and enchantments. Go back to Theros and you can pick up some of the enchantment artifacts. So those are going to be really good. I'm okay with this because it hits multiple targets, because it gets you multiple bodies. Even with that contingency, I think it's worth it. Not for all decks, of course, but if you were going to go running like an enchantments deck, and there's definitely going to be mana rocks available. I think, was it Tuvasa? I think Tuvasa would like this one. Any of the Bant decks are going to be able to pull this one off. So yeah. It's funny, like they're putting, it's Knight Tribal, but it's not Mardu, so it feels a little weird, but I get it. It is kind of an Azorius thing. I'd say if you're on enchantments and artifacts, this is is actually pretty decent. And you can hit planeswalkers, you can hit all kinds of things. You can, bounce aura shards back to someone's hand. That's fine. All right. Next up is Bargain, a common card, 1 red, instant speed. Target attacking creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Each attacking non-human creature gains trample until end of turn. That second line, that's interesting. It's it's a neat little combat trick if, say, you're on Jund or Gruul beaters and you just need to make sure if you've got like vanilla tokens that need trample, it's nice to be able to just sneak that in there. But again, I'm reluctant to play combat tricks like a 1 mana instant tie up a card slot when it comes to EDH, when I personally enjoy making sure that I've got multiple answers and that they can stay on the field. So it's interesting. It's a spot holder, but it's an early cut if you're going to be fine-tuning a deck. Barrow Witches, it's a 3/4 creature, human, warlock, 4 and a black. When Barrow Witches enters the battlefield, return target night card from your graveyard to your hand. It's expensive in casting cost, and the effect is kind of, I don't know, it seems clunky. I'm not a big fan of it myself personally. I'd say carry on to something else better. Then we would go after Barrow Witches. We're going to go to Bartered Cow. It's a 3/3 for 3 and a white. As before, Hill Giant stats. Whenever the cow dies or when you discard it, create a food token. It's kind of like this type of thing where you can either kill the creature or it can be discarded. That's good versatility. And ultimately, you've got other cards will kind of do something like this. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but the idea that you can get some kind of a token out of it is good. That is food token. I'm less wowed by it. Food does matter necessarily for an Eldraine, and if you're doing an Eldraine themed commander deck, then yeah, this might have more relevance. But in the grand scheme of EDH across the entire history of the game, I feel like this is kind of mana not well spent. I think there's better things put in this place. After Bartered Cow, we have Beanstalk Giant, and this is yet another one of again, I'm always a fan of the adventure cards in EDH, mostly because we're talking about cards that have versatility. They can do more than one thing, and because they're creatures and spells at like sorceries or instants, the means for you to get them out of a graveyard, like it's always graveyard retrieval is always where I go with these. And there's another one. I'll talk about it when we get to another one of the adventure cards. I don't think we're gonna get to it tonight, but there are some that get exiled into, when you play it, they get exiled, and you can play the creature from exile. Those are really cool. That's something I have to look into. There's a specific kind of combo and strategy behind that. But Beanstalk Giant is, let's get back to the card here. So Beanstalk Giant is 6 and a green for a star creature. Beanstalk Giant's power and toughness each equal to the number of lands you control. Fertile Footsteps, the sorcery adventure, is search your library for a basic land card, put it into the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Okay, I kind of went over with the cards I wanted to cover tonight just to kind of get familiar with them, and I'm reading this a second time through. This is actually, I like this one. This is a really good one for EDH. So what we're getting out of this, usually you think Kodama's Reach or Cultivate for 2 and a green to get some kind of mana fetch. If you're going to be going with if you're just getting 1 land, you'd think maybe Rampant Growth. But what's happening here is you're getting the card, a basic land, and putting it into play with no stipulation, so it enters the battlefield untapped. That's pretty cool, actually. So even though it's costing a little more than a Rampant Growth, it's definitely putting you're advancing your board state better than, say, a Kodama's Reach or a Cultivate, where I believe those lands actually enter tapped. I will confirm that right now. But that, again, that's doing more work, ultimately. So Cultivate here. Yeah, so Cultivate is same casting cost as the adventure on Beanstalk Giant, but you search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal those cards, put 1 onto the battlefield tapped and the other into your hand, then shuffle your library. So this is already pretty much a staple in EDH. along with Kodama's Reach, doing the same thing. The difference being that this land that it brings into play comes into play tapped. That does make a difference. It does advance your board state, but with the Beanstalk Giant, you actually can advance your board state and get like an extra turn out of it, or you get some more use out of your turn rather than waiting a whole turn for that land to wheel around and become useful. So you gain a little more incremental advantage on this. You can play this early game, so that gives it value in the beginning. It is a creature that can be reanimated, which is good. Thumbs up. And then even in late game at 7 mana, it's going to be a gigantic beast. It's going to be a like giant beater of a creature. I'd say it's worth trying out. Yeah, I think this is worth trying out because it does two jobs at the same time. I'm liking these adventure cards more and more as I read them. So even the most mundane ones seem like they're viable for EDH in my opinion. Even if they do silly things, there's just the versatility is what I love about these cards. I wouldn't be surprised if they had EDH in mind when they were building these cards. So yeah, I like Beanstalk Giant. I think it's does feel kind of vanilla. It's nice that it does the green ramp thing. And then what is it? Foils are going for $1.65 on card share. That's pretty funny. All right. Bear token. Yes, more and more bears. So I know there are some bear aficionados out there. I'm sure this is a sweet token. It's a 2/2 token. There's probably plenty of people out there that are all up on this. So that's pretty cool that we're getting some more bear tokens. Next up after bear token is Belle of the Brawl. Enjoying the play on words here. This is a good one. This is an uncommon human knight it's a 3/2 for 2 and a black. It has menace, so nice evasion. Whenever Belle of the Brawl attacks, other knights you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. So this is pretty cool. Like when you're going knight tribal, getting that kind of a anthem effect like that. We've seen this before in the game in the past with other creature types and with other tribes basically. And I'm okay with this. I think it doesn't wow me as much. Knight tribal relevant is good, but I think I'm reluctant to get on board with this one. I don't know. I there are things I like better. I think there are better ways to do this, but I could be wrong. But anyway, yeah, that's okay. If you're building Knight Tribal, it's definitely a placeholder as you're fine tuning things. If you're new to the EDH scene and you're I'm all in on Mardu Knights, all right. Well, you've got your Eldraine collection that you got from pre-release and whatnot. Go ahead and start with that, and then as you comb through the history of the game and you find better options, then this might be one of your early cuts. But that anthem effect does give it some teeth. So that's the one thing keeping me on board with it somewhat. Next up, we have the Beloved Princess. This one's kind of cheeky. It's a common card, 1 white mana for a 1/1 human noble with lifelink. Beloved Princess can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. So, Beloved Princess is this goes in sort of like a Boggles type deck. Something where you're going to be suiting up your creatures with enchantments, and as soon as you can suit this up with an enchantment, that just brings the toughness to more than 2, basically. Anything that brings its toughness to 2, it's now an unblockable creature, basically. It can be blocked by smaller creatures, so it can be piled on, and you can get they'll have to commit more creatures to blocking it and killing it, but big bads are not going to be able to chump this, so that's pretty cool. And it's still kind of that's enough to make it a contender for a placeholder. Again, one of those cards where it's okay, interesting. If you're going noble, if you're going to go noble tribal, go for it, I'd say. But, as you're going through fine-tuning a deck, when you have this in there, I can see this being an early cut. So just keep that in mind when you're playing the card. There will be things that will outperform it overall. But that evasion is interesting, especially if you're going to be playing it in a type of Boggles style deck. Belle of the Brawl, Beloved Princess, Black Lance Paragon. This one's got some interesting value written all over it. It's almost like a removal spell built into a creature. This is 1 and a black for a 3/1 human knight at rare. It has flash, which is pretty sweet. When Black Lance Paragon enters the battlefield, target knight gains Death Touch and Lifelink until end of turn. So this is really cool if you're looking to trick someone into what they think is a profitable block. say you know you've got a certain creature that you want to take out, you kind of parcel out which creatures you're going to swing in with and decide, okay, let's just see if they bite. This is where you can take, this is where it becomes an actual removal spell, when you can give one of your attacking creatures Death Touch just out of the blue. That can be neat and tricky, and because it's a creature, it's not like you're wasting a slot on an instant. So I'm kind of on board with this. I like what this is doing. Again, Night Tribal specific, so there's very few decks that are going to be able to take advantage of this. But in Night Tribal, to be able to basically play Terror, basically, Doomblade of a sort, it's going to sneak up on somebody. So that Death Touch ability, a little bit of incremental life gain. If I'm going to play Night Tribal, I definitely want one of these in the deck. I think this can do some really good work. Getting on after Blacklands Paragon, we got the Bloodhaze Wolverine, a 1 and a red for a 2/1 Wolverine at common. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, Bloodhaze Wolverine gets +1/+1 and gains first strike until end of turn. So that's interesting when you're kind of like, you get 2 cards to play and it gets a buff. I still don't think it's enough for all the work you have to do to get the advantage out of this in a game format that's going to be kind of drawing out over time. I like really long games. I really don't see. Nah, I'm not up for this one personally. I think there's better things to do. All right, so where am I? Okay. After after the Bloodhaze Wolverine, we've got Blow Your House Down. This, God. WotC. It's a sorcery speed. Yeah, it's a sorcery for 2 and a red. Up to 3 target creatures can't block this turn. Destroy any of them that are walls. So that's cute. It's an interesting idea. You can take 3 blockers out of commission. It's like one of those things where you just need to get the right amount of death touch in, or like combat damage through. So yeah, it's kind of okay. There's a place for it. I don't know if it's quite EDH, but there's a place for it. Up to 3 target creatures can't block this turn. And there's also the option where you can play this on, if one of your opponents is going to be taking out another one of your opponents that you're trying to get rid of. You can play this on. I don't know. I'm iffy. I'm kind of like, I'm not loving this card. I see the value, but I just don't like it. All right, let's see. Beloved, blah, 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 blah. Here we go. A boar token. Okay. Oh, little piggies. When this creature dies, create a food token. Neato. All right, so definitely another card in Eldraine that's going to be relevant for this. That's where that's kind of like as a fun flavor for a food theme. We'll see where that goes. All right. After board token, we've got Bog Naughty. It is a fairy for a 3/3 fairy for 3 and a black. It has flying, and you pay 2 and a black, sacrifice a food. Target creature gets -3/-3 until end of turn. Okie dokie. So this one's if you are playing EDH and you're going with the food theme, this is definitely one to have. And like I said, so if you're newer to EDH overall, you've got your Eldraine collection, you're going to be working with food tokens based on the collection that you have, and you're in black. This is a good one. This is a good use of food where you can actually sacrifice one and get that -3/-3, which is even better than damage. So that means you can get around some of the, like indestructible is one of those things, or something that prevents combat damage. This is going to get around that little aspect. And when you're playing EDH, you're going to find a lot of people are looking for valued creatures, and indestructible is one of those things that will sneak in there. Typically, it's not. I think if you're dealing with bigger creatures, it's going to be more difficult. The fact that it is a casting of like a mana ability, and you pay into it, you don't have to tap the Bog Naughty. That is good. So if you're late in the game and you have to take out multiple creatures, the options there is so long as you have those food tokens. So yeah, I think it'll be a theme deck. Like food tokens in EDH will probably be on theme for a Eldraine Tribal. basically Eldraine set specific. I am concerned though, if you're going to go that route, just be careful, because this token mechanic is really only available in one set. When you're looking for mechanics across the history of the game, since you're in EDH, you've got only one, single copies of cards, and if you're going to go with some kind of mechanic, you hopefully want to find that in multiple sets. This is new to the scene, so it's kind of like that new flavor that you food flavor. Bad puns. It's dad jokes. I got to practice those dad jokes. So it's I'm kind of okay with this. I like that removal option, that -3/-3. It's kind of like, this is something you want to maybe toy around with if you have food tokens. But when we're talking about removal options, there you can always find something better. But I'm like on the fence with this one. I like it. I want it to work, but I have reservations. All right. After the Bog Naughty, we've got the Bone Crusher Giant. This is a 4/3 giant at rare for 2 and a red with an adventure. So the creature itself, whenever Bone Crusher Giant becomes the target of a spell, Bone Crusher Giant deals 2 damage to that spell's controller. So that's pretty cool. Like, if anybody wants to deal with this with removal spells, they're going to get shocked in the face, and that's kind of like a nice consolation prize. So the adventure here, Stomp. You pay 1 and a black for an instant speed adventure. Damage can't be prevented this turn. Stomp deals 2 damage to any target. It's nice that it hits any target. I think that's new wording that they have kind of changed with something like Lightning Bolt. The original wording from Alpha and Beta, pretty sure, was deal 3 damage to any target. Since we're dealing with Planeswalkers, and Wizards has kind of like had to work with the vocabulary in relation to cards like Planeswalkers, this is an answer to that. Being able to prevent damage can't be prevented this turn. That's pretty cool. It's more like, I would have wanted it to say more like players can't gain life this turn, almost like but this has, I think it's Skullcrack kind of does a similar thing. Let's go check that out real quick. Skull Cage, no, Skull Clamp, Skullcrack. Here we go. Skullcrack, floating around $1.15. Interesting. All right, so Skullcrack, 1 and a red. At instant speed, players can't gain life this turn. Damage can't be prevented this turn. Skullcrack deals 3 damage to target player. So it's kind of like Bone Crusher. What was that? Bone Crusher Giant got part of the Skullcrack ability here. I really would have liked to have seen them both, or more. I would have liked to have seen players can't gain life this turn. I would have preferred that, because players prevent damage this turn. It's kind of like, it's a gamble. I really think there's incremental life gain that exists in EDH overall. There are strategies that just have it baked into the mechanics of their cards. I would have preferred can't gain life. It's interesting. It's fine that they can't prevent damage, like getting around that. But I think, I guess it might have been a little, if it had them both, I would have liked to have seen them both. Other than that, it's an interesting card. I don't know how much I like it for EDH, because I don't know, like, taking 2 to the face to kill this isn't a lot when you start at 40 life. It's kind of like, this isn't really getting that much done. It's just like, I don't know, I think it just comes up a little short. A short giant. It's interesting, but I don't think it's doing the work that it needs to be relevant in the format. I'm happy to be wrong, but that's my take on it. All right, so we get in here to Bramblefoot Fink. This is a 2/2 uncommon oaf. 2/2 oaf for 1 and a green. So this has an ability, activated ability of pay 8 mana. Bramblefoot Fink has base power and toughness 10/10 until end of turn. Activate this ability only if you control an Oko Planeswalker. Interesting. So Oko Tribal? Maybe more relevant for, obviously, standard, but kind of, No. No, this one's not there yet. Not for EDH, and there's too much going on there. If there was, if Oko as a planeswalker at some point is given the option to be a commander, and let me make sure. Let's look up Oko just to make sure I'm not. Yeah, let's take a quick look at Oko. Pretty sure it can't. I don't recall it being made to be a commander. Oko. Hospitality. Trickster. Oko the Trickster. And Oko Thief of Crowns. Nothing indicating that it can be a commander. So, yeah, I am less wowed by that. Bramblefoot Fink is, I don't see it being terribly relevant for EDH because you're counting on a planeswalker in your 99 to show up and be in play. And Oko Planeswalker. So unless Oko Planeswalker at some point in the future there's a version that comes out that can be a commander, I wouldn't play this. It's not worth it. Even if you've got an Oko in your deck, it's still not worth it. You've got better things to do with that mana, and that on a creature where it's less conditional. So that's my take on Bramblefoot Fink. Brazen Borrower is next. We have 1 and 2 blue for a 3/1 flash flying fairy rogue. And the ability for Brazen Power, yes, and then additionally is Brazen Borrower can block only creatures with flying, and that's kind of like Cloud Elemental thing. That makes sense. We've seen that before. The adventure half here, the instant speed Petty Thief for 1 and a blue. Return target non-land permanent to an opponent. An opponent controls to its owner's hand. So this is it's like a removal for blue. It's at, am I seeing that right? Mythic, and can't block. Is this supposed to be like return target non-land permanent opponent controls to its owner's hand? It's like I don't know. I'm blanking on where. I feel like this is trying to do what Vendilion Click does. Puts it in the graveyard. Okay. Probably the Petty Thief thing. This is probably interesting in that, again, adventure, flash ability, being able to put... It's alright. I think I'd have to think about this. Yeah, I want to think about this one a little more. Like, let it settle in. Just because adventure cards in EDH, again, blanket statement, I'm going to like them. Return target non-land permanent to an opponent controls to their hand. So that's kind of like if someone's stealing stuff from you, they're controlling one of your creatures, you can bounce it back to your own hand because they're controlling it. I do like I'm trying to think of how you would repeat that option. Again, like Phyrexian Reclamation is one of those things you can start putting things. That's okay. It's settling in. I can see a place for this. It's got to be the right build for EDH. You're going to have to think about that. Like, when you look at this card, think about how it's going to be, what kind of reanimation you're looking at. I think that's where it would go. I would put it in another one. I'd put in a reanimator deck for just putting people off their game plan. To put something back in their hand. Maybe if you've got a strategy where you're doing some hand destruction, that's going to be a little more relevant. Okay. All right. I'm kind of okay with this. It seems like at Mythic, I feel like is this one they're trying to do a substitute for Vendilion Click, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. Let's see. Vendilion Click, what Vendilion Click is doing for the same casting cost as the creature half of Brazen Borrower. Flash flying, when Vendilion Click enters the battlefield, look at the target player's hand. You may choose a non-land card from it. If you do, that player reveals the chosen card, puts it onto the bottom of their library, then draws a card. So that's kind of like a cousin to Vendilion. I can see like the inspiration is there, and that's great. I think the idea that it's putting it back in someone's hand, I don't know, makes it less power. They were trying to power down Vendilion Click, basically. So it's it's trying to do that. I don't think it's quite there. I don't know if that price is warranted. We'll see. Like, we're in pre-release weekend currently, so we'll see how prices go in the next week or two. It might maintain this possibly. I don't know. I can see this being dependent on other cards in EDH. So it's not like a big flashy WoW card, but it definitely can have a place as long as it's in the right brew. That was a big, long stream of thought. Okay, let's keep going on here. All right, Brimstone Trebuchet. Alrighty. Brimstone Trebuchet is 2 and a red for a 1/3 artifact creature wall with Defender and Reach. The Reach is pretty cool. I do like that. Reach for red is actually not too shabby. Tap Brimstone. You tap it. Brimstone Trebuchet deals 1 damage to each opponent. Nice. Hitting all the opponents is very relevant in EDH. Whenever a knight enters the battlefield under your control, untap Brimstone Trebuchet. So this has been a card concept that has existed before. The most parallel example I can think of would be Lobber Crew. If I can spell it. Lobber Crew is similar stats in that it is 3 in a red, it's an 0/4, and it is a defender. It does not have Reach. Lobber Crew deals 1 damage to each opponent whenever you cast a multicolored spell. Untap Lobber Crew. So there's kind of like a golden tribal thing going on there. You have more options for untapping Lobber Crew because it needs multicolor. There's plenty of options for multicolor in EDH. Brimstone Trebuchet counting on Knight Tribal really narrows it down as to which decks it can be played in, but it's not the worst. It's nice to have something like this in that tribal there. And since you're in Mardu, there's going to be plenty of options for Lobber Crew to have relevance in that deck. So these two parked next to each other in a Knight's Tribal is pretty cool. Basically two trebuchets. That this one has Reach is also a nice added bonus. So if you're playing Knight Tribal, you play this card straight up. And then you play your Lobber Crew because there's always an option for multicolored knights. And then you can get, basically, if you got them parked next to each other and play a multicolored knight, you're doing 6 damage across the entire table. That's pretty good value for a common card. So, yeah. Anytime, like whenever, and this is going to go for cards throughout the game, throughout the history of the game. This wording right here, deals 1 damage to each opponent. That's when you see that on any Magic card. Take a second look at it. Think about it carefully. Is it worth it? Is it relevant? This is a permanent that can be having, putting up a repeated effect. Yeah, I'm on board with that. I like that. All right, Brimstone Trebuchet. After that, we've got Burning Yard Trainer. Burning Yard Trainer is 3 in a red for a 3/3 trample haste when human knight. When Burning Yard Trainer enters the battlefield, another target knight you control gets +2/+2 and gains trample and haste until end of turn. It's just like there's a whole lot going on there. It's a neat ability, but by the time when it enters the battlefield, everything you're putting into, by the time you're playing, like you're looking at casting this and another creature that doesn't already have haste, and you're spending over 5 mana to make all of those effects happen. It seems less efficient. It's kind of like, yep, Knight Tribal, that's great. It's not really getting there, I don't think. I think it's too slow for what it does. Probably great it's probably just fine for, limited, but for EDH, I believe this one falls short. All right. Now we're going to go through the castles, and that's where we'll wrap things up here. So there are 5 castles available in the set. And the first up is Castle Ardenvale. And all the castles enter tapped unless they have a corresponding basic land of that. Well, no, plains. Not just basic. This can work for shock lands. So if you've got a shock land in play, this enters untapped. So Castle Ardenvale enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a plain. So any dual land with the plains category attached to it, this enters untapped. Add 1 white mana. And then you pay 2 and white, tap castle, or you tap the castle and create a 1/1 white human creature token. So the token generation is really good. I like that. It's kind of like, it seems like I don't know, the fact that you can put out more creatures, I feel better about this one. versus some of the other ones, but we're going to get moving along. It's a nice card. If you're going to play humans, great. If you need chump blockers or cannon fodder or something to sacrifice, use it for a sacrifice outlet, it's nice to put those up there. Let's go on to Castle Ambrus. Castle Ambrus is enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a mountain. You tap it to add 1 red, and then the activated ability is pay 1 red, tap. Creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. Now, we were looking at this, like we saw that night earlier. I believe it was Bell of the Brawl. I think it was Bell of the Brawl. Am I getting that right? Let's go back and look. Did I remember? Bell of the Brawl. Yep, got there. All right, so as opposed to Bell of the Brawl, that this is attached to a land, this is good. You've got an Anthem effect that you can play out of a land. Unfortunately, it's a tap ability, so it's not quite repeatable, but each turn you can give your creatures a buff. So if you're playing an aggressive aggro build, this is a way to have something on the field even if you don't have options in hand. So I'm a fan of this. I like what this is doing. I think it's good value for the cost, for the fact that it's attached is very hard to kill. So as opposed to artifacts and enchantments, which have more removal options. And I've talked about land removal when we're going through beta, and just being that as a strategy in EDH, it's a little lackluster, that you really can't go blowing up lands when you've got 3 other opponents and there's only so many resources to run that strategy. So this one is a nice safe bet for an Anthem ability. This will fit nicely into Goblin builds that like to go really, really wide, or this can work just fine. Anything that's going wide. This can work in, is it Thopter builds or any kind of, I think Brea is another one that has red. That would be a good one where you've got a whole bunch of Thopters and they can just give them, This one's going to have, I think, plenty of application in EDH. I like where that was going. After Ambrus, we have Castle Garen Brig. Castle Garen Brig enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a forest. You tap it to add 1 green mana. Then you can pay 2 and a green and tap it to add 6 green mana. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells or activated abilities of creatures. So this one is pretty spicy. The fact that you can only use the mana for activated abilities and creatures, there's gonna be a way to break it. There's got to be a way that you can actually loop that. I can't think of it off the top of my head. I imagine if it's out there, someone's gonna find it. It is nice that it advances your mana base to, get creatures moving along. You can cast lots of big green beaters. That's pretty cool. And it would work really well in an artifact build. Like if you're counting on getting like Wormcoil engines out, or Xenagos. Xenagos would love this one in their deck. That would be awesome. Yeah, this would go great in the Xenagos deck. Lots of room for that there. Although you're counting on 6 green mana, so it's going to be one of those things where you need some extra mana rocks available to kind of filter that, like signets. But yeah, I'm okay with this. I think it's a little constrained, but it's okay. I'm all right with that. I'd say if you're running an aggro build, this Castle Garen Brig is fine for a creature heavy deck. Just make sure you have either a way to filter that mana if you need to fix it with like a blanket. Why would I blanket? It's the wow. Anyway, there's plenty of mana rocks available where you can put any kind of mana into them to fix for a color. So, keep that in mind, just so you're not stuck on 6 green mana when you're running that. So next in line is Castle Lochthwain. Castle Lochthwain enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a swamp. You tap to add 1 black mana. This one's interesting. You pay 1 and 2 black, tap, draw a card, then you lose life equal to the number of cards in your hand. So it's kind of like I'm blanking on what that was. There are other cards that have a similar effect. This one's pretty steep if you're running like in a strategy where you're drawing cards, and I would advise against that, because that's, even though you're starting with a lot of life total in EDH, that's a lot to pay if you're taking 4 and 5 points of damage or more every time you use this card, and you're usually with a full grip. like of cards in your hand, this is not so good. Now, if you're running something where you're trying to run a low hand, or let's say you have the good fortune of owning the Ensnaring Bridge, and you're running a strategy where you can run your hand out and play that advantage, this becomes much more relevant. If you're down to 1 or 0 cards in hand, then this becomes a better draw engine and probably a fair cost for the card, as opposed to something like the I just saw it in my collection. I should know these things. All right. So there's other lands that have draw effects with stipulations. I think this one gives you a little more flexibility. You can kind of decide whether or not you want to take that kind of damage. I do like this card. I think this is a really nice draw engine for black. There's plenty of ways for black Magic players in EDH to gain life, so I'm less concerned about the life, the damage you're taking off of this. It's just you gotta play your numbers carefully with this one. But that extra draw engine on a land that's producing mana, that's sweet. I like that. All right, and the last of the castles, Castle Vantress, is the blue version. Castle Vantress enters the battlefield untapped or tapped unless you control an island. Tap it to add a blue. You pay 2 and a blue and 2 and 2 blue and tap to scry 2, which is. It's kind of, I'm not a big time blue player, but I can see the appeal for someone who plays blue. If someone wants to keep their counter magic up, and this is on the battlefield, the end step of the turn before theirs, basically they've held up their counter magic, nothing relevant has showed up, so they scry down too, just because they can, because they've got the mana, and it's nice to be able to kind of fix that top deck in a multiplayer format. So the castles are pretty all right. I think if I had to put them in order, Ardenvale's probably at the bottom. Like, paying 4 mana for a 1/1 white human is kind of rough. I'm a red player, so Ambrus kind of, I like the aggro option there for Ambrus, but I think where's the best value? Heck no, it's probably Castle Vantress has to actually be second place. I'll give it second place. I want Ambrus to be first. No, it's a tough one. How would I do that? Yeah, because you see, you've got 2 of them here counting on creatures being in play. You've got 1 of them counting on your hand being low enough to not kill you, and then Castle Vantress can happen at any time. There it is. Castle Vantress is probably first place. Loch Twain would be second place because it's the draw option. I'd then go Castle Ambrus because it's great for aggro. After that, we're going to go Castle Garen Brig just because that would be in fourth place. It gives you ramp, but a stipulated ramp. Great for aggro builds, but not so great for like if you need to play something else like a sorcery. And then Ardenvale gets in last place because even though it's great for creature token creation, that's a steep price for a 1/1. So I'd put that at the bottom of the list. And the pricing kind of matches with that. All right. So there it is. We got through 25 of them. And that only took me 40 minutes. Okay. So there it is. We're going to keep kind of churning through all the cards here. We'll pick up with the Cauldron Familiar next time. And I hope you enjoyed this. I hope the drivel got you some kind of concepts to think about for when you're brewing. And until next time, I hope you enjoy that. Click the like button, like button. the button. All right, I'm using myself in slate. So, like, subscribe, leave a comment, follow me on Twitter, or find me there. You can find me at Johnny Slivers on Twitter. And then until next time, have a great day. And may your top decks be epic. Yeah. See you around.